we're going to go to Secretary of State Marco Rubio as they announce the latest on Ukraine deals. We are watching this room right here in Geneva, where Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been leading high-level talks with Ukrainian officials as they work through a potential peace plan. Let's listen into the Secretary of State as he begins speaking.
I think we made a tremendous amount of progress, even from the last time I spoke to you, and I apologize for keeping you waiting, but there was more work to be done. You know, we began almost 3 weeks ago with a foundational document that we socialized and ran by both sides, and with input from both sides. And one of the things that happens when you've been involved in this now for 10 months is you get a pretty good sense of what the priorities and the red lines and the important issues are for both sides. And so that allowed us to create a foundational document, which has been an ongoing working document. In fact, over the last 96 hours or more, there's been extensive engagement with the Ukrainian side, including our Secretary of the Army and others, being on the ground in Kyiv, meeting with relevant stakeholders across the Ukrainian political spectrum, in the legislative branch and the executive branch and the military and others, to further sort of narrow these points. We arrived here today with one goal, and the goal was to take, is 28 points or 26 points, depending on which version as it continued to evolve, and try to narrow the ones that were open items. And we have achieved that today in a very substantial way. Now, obviously, like any final agreement, they'll have to be agreed upon by the presidents, and there are a couple issues that we need to continue to work on. But I think the report today is that I think today was worthwhile. It was very, very, it is probably the most productive day we have had on this issue, maybe in the entirety of our engagement, but certainly in a very long time. But work remains, and because this continues to be a working process, I don't want to declare victory or finality here. There's still some work to be done, but we are much further ahead today at this time than we were when we began this morning and where we were a week ago for certain. Okay?
You said about a couple of issues.
Yes.
Could you please specify on that?
Well, I'm not going to get into the details on the issues. This is a very delicate moment, and it's important. Like I said, there's not agreement on those yet. Some of it is semantics or language. Others require higher level decisions and consultation. Others, I think, just need more time to work through. As an aside, I will mention that there were items that we were discussing as part of the original 28, or it evolved. This is a living, breathing document. Every day with input, it changes. There were some that involved equities or the role of the EU or of NATO or so forth, and those we kind of segregated out because we just met with the national security advisors for various European countries, and those are things we'll have to discuss with them because it involves them. So we sort of really focused on the ones that were bilateral in nature for the most part. So there are a couple, none of it insurmountable. I can tell you that the items that remain open are not insurmountable. We just need more time than what we have today. I honestly believe we'll get there.
So has Ukraine indicated to you that it's prepared to compromise, for instance, some of those key issues like territory in exchange for peace with Russia? They suggested that they are prepared.
Well, I'm not going to look. It's not because for purposes of evasion. It's just I'm not going to get into the details of the topics that were discussed because this is an ongoing process. What is important to understand and how these things work is you have to, in order to have a proposal, you have to write it. If it's just verbal, it's in the air. You have to put it down on a piece of paper, and just because it's printed on a piece of paper doesn't indicate finality. So you get input, and based on that input, you make adjustments, and then you get more input, or you make a counteroffer, and you get more adjustments. That's an ongoing process. There's a lot more of that to happen. So I'm not going to speculate or go into the details of any of the specific items in the latest version of the proposal because, frankly, by tomorrow or the next day, that may have evolved and changed further. And but I can tell you, I guess, that I feel very optimistic that we can get something done here because we made a tremendous amount of progress today.
So what happened from the attitude of the Ukrainians during this negotiation?
Oh, it was very positive. I'm telling you, today was the most productive day we have had.
Ungrateful earlier.
Well, today, and we've talked to him since, I think he's quite pleased at the reports we've given him about the amount of progress that's been made. Well, obviously the Russians get a vote here, right? So, I mean, look, we began from the early stage of this process with our understanding of the Russian position as had been communicated to us in numerous ways. At the State Department, we received numerous written non-papers and things of this nature, also verbally, things they've discussed over time and so forth. So it was no matter what we came up with today, obviously we now have to take what we come up with, if we can reach that agreement with the Ukrainian side, to the Russian side. That's another part of this equation. Yeah, they have to agree to this in order for this to work.
What about new deadline? Will be new deadline or it's...
The deadline is we want to get this done as soon as possible. Obviously, you know, we'd love it to be Thursday. We'd love to be. Ultimately, the important point today is that we have made substantial progress. We've really moved forward. So I feel very optimistic that we're going to get there in a very reasonable period of time very soon. You know, whether it's Thursday, whether it's Friday, whether it's Wednesday, whether it's Monday of the following week, we want it to be soon, because people are going to, between today and the time we deal with this, more people are going to die. More destruction is going to happen. Our goal is to end this war as soon as possible, but we need a little more time. The what? I'm sorry?
To discuss the fighter jets in Poland?
Yeah, I'm not going to discuss any of the particulars of it, right, frankly. As I said, this is an ongoing process, and so I think there's work to be done. I know that's deeply unsatisfying to you who have to cover these sorts of things, but I wanted to make you aware that we've made progress. I simply don't want to do anything that sets us back in that regard, and but I can tell you we've made substantial progress. Today was the best day we have had in our entire 10 months of working on these issues.
Have you met the European representatives today and what you...
Yes, yeah, we met with the national security advisors of a variety of countries that were here, and we sort of walked them through the progress we had made today. We didn't go again into tremendous detail. We assured them that items that involve both Europe and NATO directly, or that those items are items that we sort of agreed to put as part of a separate track, because it involves input from them. But I think what they heard, and I hope they'll confirm, I believe they will, is an incredible amount of positivity from both the Ukrainian and American side about the progress we've made today.
What happens tomorrow? What's the plan for
It
tomorrow?
only makes sense if it includes a provision that says the Americans are willing to provide security guarantees similar to Article 5 of NATO. Are you receptive to this?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to discuss the details of what's being, you know, worked on with regards to any particular provisions. I mean, clearly, I think we all recognize that part of getting a final end to this war will require for Ukraine to feel as it is safe and it is never going to be invaded or attacked again. So that's clearly something that has to be discussed. I think we've made substantial progress on that and other points, but I'm not going to get into the details today about all of those. I have time for two more, guys, because I got to run somewhere. The what?
You're asking the Russians to
Zelensky in the next hours?
Am I what?
Would there be a call between President Trump and Zelensky?
I don't know. It's possible. I'm not sure.
What's the plan? What happens tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Yeah, what happens
We
from
keep
here?
working. I mean, look, this process.
here in Geneva.
No. This process has been ongoing now for the better part of 3 weeks, and it's really sped up in the last 96 hours. So we have all kinds of people at technical levels that are working full time on this and engaged in this full time. In fact, even as we got up and broke up now and walked away from the table, there are a handful of technical items that we expect answers from them on, or suggestions from them on, in the next 24 hours or so. So this is an ongoing process. We don't have to be here in this building for that to move, but we thought today being here in person allowed us to make great strides, because especially since they sent such a high-level delegation who have the authority to sort of call back to their capital, talk to their president, and make and agree to certain things. So we've made a lot of progress.
The
what?
counter proposals of the European, the counter plan of the Europeans.
I'm not a counter plan.
Nope.
I haven't seen any counter plan. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Any concessions you're asking the Russians
All
to make,
right.
Mr. Rubio?
An update on the possibility of peace after Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other U.S. officials, including Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, met with Ukrainian leaders today in Geneva. The White House releasing a joint statement from the meeting, reading in part, quote, "They reaffirmed that any future agreement must fully uphold Ukraine's sovereignty and deliver a sustainable and just peace. As a result of the discussions, the parties drafted an updated and refined peace framework. This comes just one day after South Dakota Senator Mike Rounds said that
We're going to go to Secretary of State Marco Rubio as they announce the latest on Ukraine deal.
An update on the possibility of peace after Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other U.S. officials, including Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, met with Ukrainian leaders today in Geneva. The White House releasing a joint statement from the meeting, reading in part, quote, "They reaffirmed that any future agreement must fully uphold Ukraine's sovereignty and deliver a sustainable and just peace. As a result of the discussions, the parties drafted an updated and refined peace framework. This comes just one day after South Dakota Senator Mike Rounds said that a 28-point proposal that administration officials have described as President Donald Trump's peace plan for Ukraine was instead a Russian wish list for peace negotiations." Joining us now is Simon Schuster, staff writer for The Atlantic. He's been reporting on Russia and Ukraine for nearly 20 years and is the author of The Showman, Inside the Invasion That Shook the World and Made a Leader of Vladimir Zelensky. Simon, it's good to have you back here with us. Yes. So I want to get your reaction to that statement. But also, I want to understand from you, what is going on here with Secretary Marco Rubio? Is he leading the way on this thing, or is he just finding out about all of it?
It looks like he was handed this document that was essentially a set of Russian wishes for how the war needs to end. Positions that Russia has long made clear, but we haven't seen articulated quite this way, point by point, in these 28 points. Rubio was handed this thing. It had been concocted in consultation with Steve Witkoff and the Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev, but now he has to run with this thing because that is, quite tragically, now the basis of these negotiations. That is the starting point, and everyone else is trying to catch up, fix this thing, insert some balance or sanity into it, but that's going to be a tall order.
Well, the statement really stressed respecting Ukrainian sovereignty, but that was literally the last thing that was respected in this 28-point plan, which frankly, it just rewarded Russian aggression. It made clear that Ukraine could never join NATO. It limited the size of their army. Was there any demand in there that the Ukrainians actually would have gone for at a negotiating table?
I mean, I think they would have been heartened, for example, to see some progress there about children, returning Ukrainian children that Russia has kidnapped from the war zone and taken to Russia.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, Russia.
So that has been something that the Ukrainians have been pushing for, and that made it into this version of the deal. But, you know, that is not enough to allow Zelensky or the Ukrainians to get behind this thing. And their European allies, who have been livid over the way this was handled. And when they made, the Europeans, when they made the very obvious point to their American interlocutors, why didn't we try the other methods to reaching peace, like sanctions, like pressuring Russia, like pushing them to be forced to come to the negotiating table and not preemptively accepting their demands? And the response that they got from Secretary Driscoll in Kiev when he met with the Europeans was, we've tried it all. We need to end this thing fast. The President Trump wants to end it, and this is the best deal we're going to get, so the Ukrainians need to accept it.
I want to read you a comment from Republican Congressman Don Bacon, which was, some people better get fired on Monday for the gross buffoonery we just witnessed over the last 4 days. This hurt our country and undermined our alliances and encouraged our adversaries. What do you think the potential consequences are, if any, of our leaders being out of sync on something as important as this?
Well, they're certainly out of sync with their European allies, I'll say that. But there is, as Representative Bacon pointed out, he's been a very good friend to Ukraine throughout the war. As he pointed out, there's a lot of mixed messages coming from different corners of the administration. I think now, as they have met and begun these negotiations and consultations with the Ukrainians, they're beginning to kind of understand, okay, these are points in the deal that we're just not going to get the Ukrainians to agree to. And I think also internally the Trump administration is having discussions about what can we get out of this deal. The problem is they have put themselves in the position of coming to the table with a set of Russian demands that they are now defending in conversations with the Ukrainians. That is not a normal or reasonable place for the United States to be diplomatically.
We keep talking about the Trump administration and their role in this, but it's not solely members of the administration who are participating. Jared Kushner apparently has played some role in these negotiations. What do we know about his involvement?
Yeah, he seems to have been involved at the point when the Russian envoy and Steve Witkoff were drafting these points. He, of course, has a lot of credibility with President Trump for recently his role in the ceasefire in Gaza. So I think that added momentum to whatever the U.S. and Russian envoys were working on when Jared Kushner came in, and he helped bring this thing to President Trump and say, okay, this is what we got. This is the road to peace. I just had success in Gaza. Now let's chalk up another ceasefire in Ukraine. I think that is fundamentally what Trump wants to see, another one on the scoreboard.
Can you help me understand the president's continued sort of insistence on more gratitude and graciousness from Zelensky, from Ukraine? He posted this very long post, as this president likes to do, so I'll do my best to condense it. It started off with the war between Russia and Ukraine is a violent and terrible one that with strong and proper U.S. and Ukrainian leadership would have never happened. He's blaming Joe Biden there. And then later he says that Ukraine, for some reason, this is in quotations, leadership has expressed zero gratitude for our efforts, and Europe continues to buy oil from Russia. Is that true that Ukraine has not been grateful to the U.S. at all?
Of course not. President Zelensky and everyone down the hierarchy and the Ukrainian people have always expressed deep gratitude for the enormous amount of help they've received. This is just a form of psychological pressure on the negotiators there for Trump to indicate what he wants to happen and to denigrate and weaken Zelensky and the Ukrainians as they're sitting down to hold these very difficult negotiations. It's just kind of trolling and needling them to weaken them and weaken their position. That's all I can
Why
read into
doesn't
it.
Putin express gratitude?
Yeah, very, very good point. He has a lot to be grateful for in the terms of this deal.
This Thanksgiving. So I have a question about your piece, a DMZ. It's called a DMZ for Ukraine, and how this plan would, of sorts, create a DMZ like in Korea. And so that is not an acceptable option of the idea of the United States has committed thousands of troops. I think we have maybe a troop posture of around 60,000 to protect the DMZ in Korea. We wouldn't envision anything like that. Are we at the point, though, where rewarding territorial aggression is preferable to extending this war? Is that the moral choice that basically the Trump plan presents us with?
It seems like it. I mean, one maybe good thing that's come out of this whole exercise with these 28 points is it's forced a lot of these questions, and forced a reckoning on them. We have to finally answer them. One of the things that came out of it that I wrote this piece about was this idea of the DMZ. It appeared in, I think, point 21 of the 28 points. And finally, we have on paper an idea, a vision of how the front line would look after a ceasefire. Similar to the 38th parallel in the Korean Peninsula, which is not a peaceful zone. It's not a happy place. It's deeply militarized. It's not demilitarized at all. And when I talked to President Zelensky earlier this year about this idea of a DMZ carving through Ukraine like a scar, he hated this. He said it would be a dead zone where nothing would grow. And he doesn't want to accept that as a future indefinitely for years or decades for Ukraine.
Simon Schuster, thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise.
Okay, now to the other side of the aisle. Let's check in with Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri. Great to have you with us, Senator. And I want to start off where we started with Senator Warner, which is the idea of what's going on in Ukraine. We've got brand new polling from the Reagan National Defense Forum. This is their survey asking the... But we begin with the latest messaging from the White House on efforts to end the war on Ukraine. In moments, I'll speak live with the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S., Olga Stefanishina, about Ukraine's input into this U.S.-authored 28-point plan. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is leading a delegation in Geneva to talk with European security officials about this plan that's received backlash this weekend from Western leaders and some U.S. lawmakers. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live with the latest. Hey, Trey.
Jackie, good morning. Talks are taking place today in Geneva, Switzerland, aimed at ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. These conversations include officials from the U.S., Ukraine, and a variety of European countries, all trying to rally behind Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke about the negotiations and a 28-point peace plan that has circulated in recent days.
Цими днями I have signed a decree on the composition of the Ukrainian delegation and approved all relevant directives. Our representatives know how to protect Ukrainian national interests and exactly what is needed to prevent Russia from carrying out a third invasion, another strike against Ukraine.
Zelensky did not go into details about the 28-point peace plan that would require Ukraine to give up more territory in the east of their country and limit the size of their military. Some U.S. senators say that Secretary of State Marco Rubio told them the plan was a Russian wish list and not the actual plan. A State Department spokesperson responded to those comments, saying they were blatantly false, with Secretary of State Rubio saying in an X post, quote, "The peace proposal was authored by the U.S. It is offered as a strong framework for ongoing negotiations. It is based on input from the Russian side, but it is also based on previous and ongoing input from Ukraine." We're also hearing directly from the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, who warned that his troops would take more territory by force if the Ukrainians don't agree to the plan.
We have this text. We received it through existing channels of communication with the U.S. administration. I believe it can be used as the basis of a final peaceful settlement, but it has not been discussed with us in detail.
There is certainly a level of irony with the Russian leader talking about a peaceful settlement, since he is the man who ordered the initial full-scale invasion. But we do expect to get more information on this critical meeting today in Switzerland in the hours and days ahead. Jackie?
All right, Trey Yingst-Forrest. Thank you so much, Trey. For more, let's bring in the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States, Olga Stefanishina. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for being here. This is a very big weekend. How big, or how close, rather, are you to reaching an agreement? The president had given a Thursday deadline for Ukraine to respond, then seemed to suggest that maybe this isn't the final offer, but we are hearing that everyone is hopeful this might be very close. Is that true?
Well, speaking from the perspective since the first day of the full-scale invasion, probably this momentum and these discussions which are taking place right now in Switzerland have so far been the most important part through this whole 3.5-year period in international engagements, because the commitment of U.S. president and U.S. leadership and the team is really strong. And as it was said, this is only the first proposal on the table, and indeed it's a wish list. It's not a document or an agreement. It's just a list of the points. It's been discussed right now, and it is an agreed line with Ukraine and the United States that it will be a constructive reconciling process.
Okay. Are there any items in this wish list, as you described it, that are non-starters for Ukraine? There's been a lot of concern raised that handing over parts of the Donbass that Russia does not control would basically give them a straight shot to Kyiv. Ukraine has obviously fought tooth and nail to defend those parts of your country. And then also capping Ukraine's military and essentially cutting it by a third. The Europeans suggested that those two measures could make Ukraine more vulnerable to attack in the future. Is that the current assessment from Ukraine?
Well, there are like a lot of points in this plan, and indeed European allies and partners are in Switzerland with us, because a number of points are directly related to them and to NATO. But again, this is again a wish list, a list of points. It's not an agreement, so the agreement should be as precise as possible. This, additionally to 28 points, there is a security assurances proposal from U.S. on the table, and it all should be embodied in the agreement. So teams are still working in Switzerland. Not yet final statements have been done. President has nominated Chief of his office, Andriy Yermak, as a Chief of Delegation. Also, the Chief of Military Intelligence, Kirill Budanov, is also part of the delegation. So this is a rather strong background on that.
But is handing the Donbass over a red line?
It's not something related to undermining the sovereignty, and it also says de facto. So the discussions are around that.
Okay. How much of this plan did Ukraine write? You heard the Secretary of State say that it was U.S. authored with input from the Russians, but also input from Ukraine. A White House official told me that point 26, amnesty to all parties, was actually written by Ukraine. And they said it previously said, before the revisions from Ukraine, that Ukraine will conduct a full audit of all the aid received and create a legal mechanism to recover any errors found and punish those who illegally profiteered from the war. Ukraine has obviously argued many times that Putin has committed war crimes. Why would Ukraine want to give Putin amnesty?
Well, I can, and I have to confirm that formally Ukraine received the document when Secretary of Army Driscoll was there, and this is what was confirmed by my president as something formal which has been handed over to him. And this is the document I saw, and this is the basis on which the parties work right now in Switzerland. So, but what I know also, and I think it is really important, that there was a really strong commitment from U.S. Department of State and the White House to finally force Russia to put at least something on a paper, you know, to avoid being played with the peace, I would say. So I think having Russians preparing their proposals is something that was the original intention, just to avoid the situation of being playing around the talks, the real intentions. And also Ukraine have been talking about stopping on the existing line, the ceasefire, and also European allies and the coalition of willing had their proposals. So this document, I cannot call it a combination of all of that, but these all the discussions which were taking place.
The suggestion, though, by some was that this language about amnesty being injected by Ukraine was somehow generated because of this corruption scandal that's happening within the government. Obviously, this corruption was uncovered by Ukrainian anti-corruption agencies and is being addressed. But the suggestion is that they were willing to basically trade, you know, amnesty for those officials for amnesty for Putin. Is that true?
Yeah, it's absolutely not correct to say that these are related amnesties. So you do not able, you know, to put equal sign between, you know, domestic exposures done by some domestic law enforcement institutions and peace and war issues and, you know, political immunities for Ukraine. These are three different layers. Okay. And Ukraine has been standing for its freedom. The aggression started on our land, and we just defend ourselves. So whatever will be discussed further at this point is not part of this bigger framework.
The president indicated that this deal might be coming together quickly because Ukraine's military is in a bad spot. Listen to what he said this week.
They will lose in a short period of time. You know, so.
The whole of Donbass?
They're losing land. They're losing land.
So
we're in it for one thing.
And then the vice president also said there's a fantasy that if we just give more money, more weapons, or more sanctions, victory is at hand. What is the military assessment right now? Very recently, you know, the president was saying that Ukraine is positioned to take back all of its territory. This sounds like there's been a change and that Ukraine is not doing so well. What's going on in the battlefield?
Well, I think the bottom line is that, indeed, there is an occupied territory because there is a Russian aggression on our soil. It's not the territorial war between Ukraine and Russia. It's the aggression and the atrocious war on our soil. So there are territories which are occupied. There are like a big combat line with more than 1,000 combat engagements, and some of the parts of the territory being occupied, some of the parts of the territory were deoccupied. So, and indeed, the winter is coming. It's not only about the front line, it's about the massive attacks to energy infrastructure, which causes millions and millions of losses in infrastructure and loss of the multiple lives of the civilians. This is what is really serious. I cannot agree more that the situation is complicated, because what kind of situation could be not complicated when you have people dying in your country in the center of Europe?
So you're saying that the winter's coming. Obviously, it's concerning. It's concerning every year that the presence of these occupied territories and Russian troops and the aggression is a concern. But you wouldn't say that Ukraine is losing right now.
These are very, different terms, losing and winning. So we have been winning to remain as a state and depriving Russia from the ability to declare anything from the goals they had in 2022.
And very quickly, because we're almost out of time, this sanctions bill that's in Congress, what have you heard from lawmakers about how likely it is to get a vote? Is the administration supportive of it?
Well, I believe that when the Congress and Senate will reconvene in the beginning of December, nothing in the existing process on negotiations on this peace deal should be a precondition for delaying the voting on the bill. Okay. I think the stronger the position of the United States, the more Russians are committed to the real deal. Because at this point, this wish list and the letter of intentions of 28 points is nothing but the pretext for Russia to further manipulate.
He'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, you know, they should just keep fighting.
The suggestion that he made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine.
Well, at some point, he's going to have to accept something. You know, he hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards.
President Trump says Ukraine's President Zelensky will just have to like the U.S.-backed peace plan that includes Article 5-like security guarantees and an immediate ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine war. This, as the president moments ago said, the deal is not the final offer. For more, let's bring in former Air Force intelligence officer Jake Sotiriadis and Hudson Institute senior fellow Rebecca Heinrichs. Great to have you both.
What's up? It's your boy Talk Williams.
So, President Trump set a Thanksgiving Day deadline, trying to hammer out a deal in the coming days. Rebecca, how do you assess it?
Well, President Trump also implied that it might not be a hard deadline, so there's going to be some time here. There are some things in the deal that are going to be totally acceptable to Ukraine. Even something that President Trump and Secretary Rubio said that they understood that Ukraine can't accept. On November 12th, Secretary Rubio said,
understandably so. I am going to, and I apologize, but I didn't really want to do this live about this. It just caught my attention, and I was like, okay, you know what? That's what this live is about. But I'm going to switch faces or switch paces here, because what the live should really be about is some things of concern in the United States with United States citizens involving our job market. That's right, guys. The job market. More specifically, how AI, artificial intelligence, has affected the job market and opportunities for new college graduates. New college grad, I could put the whole word, graduates. Yeah, how AI has affected the job market and opportunities for new college graduates. Yeah, not that you guys would even care, and I understand that, but the reality of it is that the unemployment rate for new college graduates is higher than the national unemployment rate. And that isn't good. It just isn't. So I'm going to scrub through here real quick, and I'm trying to find a thumbnail to represent that. Again, guys, I apologize. I appreciate you stopping through about the negotiations taking place between Russia and Ukraine, and how, you know, Senator Marco Rubio or whoever he is handling that, or is he Secretary of War or Secretary of State, whatever he is, I think is wonderful. But the reality of it is while they work that out, we can't pay our bills. While they're over there working out the war, trying to decide whose side to get on, what policies, how you're going to divide up the land, who's going to be in the opportunity or not, we have some realities over here that we need to deal with. And they're not as pleasant as some may think. And those realities are facing not only people who are currently unemployed, may have been laid off through some massive layoffs in the companies, the shrinking of the economy, the downsizing of hiring, but also new college graduates, those young adults that have been promised or was looking forward to being able to come out of college and go right into some type of job market that was sitting there waiting for them, available, especially when it comes to the knowledge economy, the knowledge workers, the tech sectors, that area of the economy where people do what they do with their hands, with their mind, their analytical thoughts. their so-called gifts of intelligence, if you want to say that, if we want to even stretch it that far. So let me just change the playlist over here, and we're going to hear from some of the tech people, whether it be Mark Zuckerberg. You know Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. We're going to hear from Facebook, some of the tech people, Twitter, whether it be... That's not the playlist I'm looking for. Mark Zuckerberg. Let me go back here. I want to talk about the jobs. We're going to hear from, talk about Facebook, artificial intelligence, some of the tech people. What Twitter, are we doing? What can you do? What can we do? How are our families being affected? Like that whole thing. Okay?
How you doing? My name is Tolly McMillan. I'm a sophomore political science student from the great Commonwealth of Virginia. Next governor.
7 years ago, and Mark Zuckerberg, the founder, co-founder, whoever you want to call him, of Meta, formerly known as Facebook, he was invited to speak and take questions. He took questions at one of these universities in Virginia. And again, this was 7 years ago. And, you know, the young adults, they're looking forward to getting their Bachelor of Science degrees. They're looking forward to coming into the job market, creating value for themselves, taking advantage of opportunities. And this is what they asked Mark Zuckerberg.
How you doing? My name is Tolly McMillan. I'm a sophomore political science student from the great Commonwealth of Virginia. Next governor. But my question to you, I want to thank you for coming here. My question for you, do you think a bachelor's degree with your experience with college and everything, do you think a bachelor's degree is a necessary key to attaining success?
Ooh, I am not your role model on this one. Yeah, absolutely. Stay in school. Look. I think it helps. I loved the time that I spent in college. I wish I could have gotten more time. I did not choose to leave. I just happened to build Facebook, and it kind of made me leave. But if I had the opportunity to learn for 2 more years in college, I mean, college is this magical time, right, where you get to explore different interests and focus on different things and meet great people. And that is not something that I would have wanted to have given up. And if I could have magically if I could have done Facebook in my senior year, I would have done that. Or after I left, I would have done that, and I wish I could have stayed in college. But, and of course, there's no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of research that shows that having a bachelor degree absolutely does help increase your job potential, your earnings potential, all that. So, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it's kind of crazy for, I'm not necessarily the best spokesperson for this message, but like, unless there's a really, really good reason to leave college, you really should finish college. And even me, I'm going back to college to get, I'm going to get a degree this year. Harvard finally allowed me to come back. And I have to say, I think that this is probably going to be the thing that my parents are most proud of me for. So look, yes, I'm not the right messenger, but stay in school.
And we'll see what happens long term. I
NGO is sort of trying to do these things, but really not succeeding. And
of productivity and progress. But this scares a lot of folks here when it comes to
contextually sensible and therefore intelligent.
So AI factories and robotics, and we heard it yesterday from His Royal Highness, his vision, how to augment our workforce with roughly tens of millions of robotics to be able to infuse the next wave of productivity and progress.
I was on mute.
But
That's
this
probably
scares
why
a lot of
Billy
folks
T
here
called
when it
me
comes to the
I was
future
on
of jobs.
mute. So let me just back
let's hear
up a
about
little
your
bit.
thoughts, Elon
I was
Jensen,
talking
on
to
that.
myself. Good call, Billy T. Thanks,
sure.
man.
Tens of millions of robotics.
All right. Anyway, what I was attempting to say. What I was attempting to say was this event right here was held in Saudi Arabia. And basically what they're talking about here, they're talking to investments. This is the U.S. Saudi investment event that was held this month, maybe. Okay. What, 10 days ago, maybe a week ago, 5 days ago? Let me look and see. November the 15th or something, November the 14th, just a week or so ago. And basically what they're doing is they're on a large stage, international stage, and they're answering questions for the investors. You have NVIDIA CEO, founder, Jensen Huang. You have Elon Musk on there. Of course, Tesla, X, XAI, SpaceX, the whole gambit. And they're just asking them about artificial intelligence. Where are we going? What's the directions of things? What is AGI? And these are real questions, because when it comes down to the you and me's or the you and I's, however it's supposed to be said, your kids, the youth, the young adults who are leaving high school, going into college, seeking out certain career paths, attempting to pursue their interest, potentially their passion, taking out loans, using their scholarships, receiving grants as such. How will they be affected? What are the curveballs of the economy, of the projected way that things will be done? What is the skill set that will be accepted? What are employers in the knowledge economy? What are they looking for from new accountings coming out? Are they looking for the new accountant to have some type of, I don't know, programming experience, coding understanding? Are they looking for the person in healthcare, depending on what they're going to do, to understand how to use AI, some tools? Somebody in law, what is the expectation there? So it's not just about technology in and of itself. It's the different domains, the different professions where you as an individual, if you're hired, would have to learn, be trained, or get exposed to technology. Well, yesterday's entry level ain't today's entry level. So what are the universities, the schools, the educational systems of higher learning? What are they preparing these young adults, these kids for? Or we at a stage right now, well, it really doesn't matter much. Those coming out of college now are victims to a paradigm shift in the economy, in technology. They are victims to the new industrial era of AI, artificial intelligence, large language models, agentic AI, the extent, the level of automation, streamlining processes, go way beyond we need all of these bodies. Meaning that in the industrial area or in the era of industry, it was welcomed and we needed 10x bodies to work the machines, to work the factories. AI is not going to require those bodies. So what are you going to do with these people pursuing this so-called knowledge profession? What's going to happen with them? Well, there were some real questions asked at this U.S.-Saudi Arabia summit a week ago. And they asked the CEO of NVIDIA what his thoughts was, where are we going with education, where are the opportunities, what's going to happen with jobs. And as always, he's a statesman when it comes to being optimistic about human beings, or HITL, HITLs, human in the loops. Yeah, that human in the loop. And he's always given the politically correct response. Oh, with the advent of AI, and we're going to do so much, and it's going to create more opportunities, and people will be able to pursue what their creative juices will really lead them to. And, you know, geniuses will be born out of this and all of that. No. That's not true. And then they asked Elon Musk. And let's listen to Elon Musk's response.
To be able to infuse the next wave of productivity and progress. But this scares a lot of folks here when it comes to the future of jobs. So let's hear about your thoughts, Elon and Jensen, on that.
Sure. Well, if you say, like, in the long term, where will things end up? Long term, I don't know what long term is. Maybe it's 10, 20 years, something like that. For me, that's long term. My prediction is that work will be optional.
Optional?
Optional. So...
We'll take that.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be like playing sports or a video game or something like that. If you want to work, you know, in the same way, like you can go to the store and just buy some vegetables, or you could grow vegetables in your backyard. It's much harder to grow vegetables in your backyard, but some people still do it because they like growing vegetables. That will be what work is like, optional. Now, between now and then, there's actually a lot of work to get to that point. And I always recommend people read Ian Banks' culture books to get a sense for what a probable positive AI future is like. And interestingly, in those books, money is doesn't exist. It's kind of interesting. And my guess is, if you go out long enough, assuming there's a continued improvement in AI and robotics, which seems likely, the money will stop being relevant at some point in the future. Now, there will still be constraints on power, like electricity and mass. The fundamental physics elements will still be constraints, but I think at some point currency becomes irrelevant.
Jensen, any thoughts?
Did you hear how quiet the room got? Because it's such a radical statement. It's such a unforgiving and unthoughtful, irritable, unthinkable statement. Why? Because capitalism, this country, was built on how to get as much money, how to create as much opportunity, how to draw it out of some type of value as possible. So the idea that artificial intelligence, agentic AI, super intelligence, or some form of AGI, to the extent where we're there, will actually contribute and make money not as important. It will make working optional. Think about that. It sounds radical in November 2025. But how radical is it? Because to be perfectly honest, We already live in a life where there's examples of working being optional. We already are. Imagine Social Security. Look at Social Security right now. Social Security one time was probably when you're 50-some years old or in your early 60s. Now it's moved to where full Social Security is when you're 67 years old. If you take it before then, maybe you get a penalty. If you stay in there until you're 70, maybe they give you extra money. However they work it. In the future, because of the advent of AI, being able to what? Solve even medical problems, disease, types of cancer, and different things like that, because they can use quantum mechanics to actually simulate, emulate, and get to a resolution quicker than we currently can. Testing, everything can just be fast-tracked. So you would say, okay, that might lend to what? Extending the lifespan of human beings. Sure, it might. But if you can use AI to do that, the other side of that is look at all of the other things you don't need human beings for. Okay? So you say, well, then that means they're going to extend Social Security out even further. They're going to push it out to 75 once the average lifespan can be at 80 or be at 90 or whatever. It sounds that way. But I think it's going to have a reverberation effect. That's what Elon Musk is talking about. I think what he's suggesting is because artificial intelligence, AI, is going to be able to move things forward and extend life as a result of finding different cures and different things like that, you just wouldn't need the workforce that you have now. You wouldn't have to drag anybody out to keep working. There's already something in place, going back to Social Security, going back to retirement, going back to pension plans. Those are already types of work being optional. Because even though you may have your health and you could be a able body and you can work, you don't have to. You can retire. You say, well, no, people just do that because you got to pay your bills. What's the difference between working as optional and paying your bills if there's something set up where the AI company pays your rent or mortgage or your utility bill because of the amount of utilities or energy that it takes to run the large language models, to run the data warehouses, to run the data centers that are just being built all across this country. Yeah, energy. There's going to be programs, there's going to be grants, there's going to be all types of things that's going to come out of this whole AI ecosystem. Because a lot of these companies are going to be sued, or they're going to have to come up with a way to pay everybody to use their information as they engage with the devices, the internet, and anything digitally to train their large language models. The energy companies, they're going to have to build out massive infrastructure to extend and complement and bring additional energy to feed the data centers. All of these things will produce other programs, other subsidies, and the likes. So this idea where money will not be as important and working will be optional can come in the form of, if you take Social Security and you have a particular type of job, you won't be penalized if you take it early. People will jump on that. Now I can work optional. They might have other incentive plans. Take your retirement, take your pension, if you have a particular type of job. The reason why I'm saying that is because there seems to be a lot of talk about the economy, and there seems to be something called the knowledge economy with knowledge workers versus the economy as we know it. The knowledge economy is people, when you go to work or corporate America or whatever like that, they're dealing with computer systems, they're dealing with automation, they're streamlining processes, and they're just doing things where you know they're using computer systems to do it. They're using some type of devices, and all of these devices or Internet of Things or what have you, AI is coming in the background. Coding, programming is coming in. The upscaling, the reshaping, the redoing, the reskilling is required. And what AI is going to do, and I'll play a little clip from that from Amazon, it targets the menial, the mundane, and the repetitive. Think about that. Menial tasks that just don't require a major certificate or some type of BS degree to do, but you still do these tasks at your job, at your company, for your own company. But they're menial tasks, but they need somebody to do that. Then there's the mundane tasks. These mundane tasks, we may have been trained on it. We may do this for different companies and we receive a certificate, but they're mundane. There's nothing special about what you do. They can get somebody else to do it. And then the repetitive tasks. The repeat is almost like what? Load, put the detergent in, wash, rinse, spin, repeat. Load, put the detergent in, clothes in, wash, spin, or wash, rinse, spin, and repeat. Repetitive. Those things, those tasks, those jobs where there's the menial tasks, the mundane tasks, and the repetitive tasks that don't involve the human being interacting with other humans that would be identified as either customers or constituents or what have you. That's the aim. That's the low-hanging fruit. Those are the vulnerabilities that the AI, the agentic AI, the automation, the algorithms, they will be replacing. They just will. And that's why they say the knowledge economy is shrinking. It's on the way out. If you have a job now where you're dealing with technology, if you have a position now where you're part of that automated process in what you do because you have the skill set, they like what you do, can't nobody do it better, you might want to keep that job. Yeah, you might want to keep that job. It's like being in a relationship where you're not crazy about her no more, but she good because she can cook and she don't really cheat on you. She just flirt a lot. So you keep her or him. I want to make it on both sides. Because what's going on now is new college graduates in computer science and engineering and all of these knowledge jobs, knowledge tasks, knowledge economy type of work. They can't even get a job. The unemployment rate for new college graduates is higher than the unemployment rate for the country. Yeah, the unemployment rate for the whole United States is lower than the unemployment rate for college graduates. And what about the professors? What about the teachers? What about
how do I
those
get an
who are
AI
tasked?
tutor in every
Little clip. What about those who
I
are
have both at
tasked
various points in our life?
to prepare and teach the students coming through the universities? What about that? There's going to be a paradigm shift. Yesterday's teacher ain't going to be a good fit for today's teacher. This little clip I'm going to play right here, these two gentlemen that you're going to see on the screen, one of them is the author of a book called Freakonomics, Stephen Levitt. He's a professor. He teaches at the University of Chicago. This guy's a pretty bright guy. Established professor, entrepreneur, book writer, technologist, guru. He's sitting there with one of Google's chief technology officers, or CTOs, chief technologist officer for Google. That gentleman's name is Ben Gomes or Ben Gomez, depending on how you pronounce it, or depending on how I'm supposed to pronounce it. They're having a conversation about, in the advent of AI, in the advent of AI, in the face of AI. This was shot this year. This footage was this year, not last year, 10 years ago. Now, this year, they're having a conversation about what are the universities doing? What are the school systems doing with AI? And I want you to hear what this professor says. Because as it stands, a lot of the professionals, the professors, the faculty at the university levels, they agree that right now the school systems are just factory minds. They're not teaching kids how to think. They're not teaching young adults how to think. They're just teaching them how to do something. They're not teaching them why. They're not teaching them purpose. He says that he feels guilty because of that. He says this idea that one size fit all when it comes to education and the methods, the strategies, the techniques, he feels bad. But what else is he to do? But, not to take away his thunder and his truth, let's just listen to his words. Remember, this is a professor at the University of Chicago. This is the author of Freakonomics, and he's speaking to Google's chief technology officer.
Which is something which actually makes sense. So you and I have both at various points in our life faced problems where we didn't know what the answers were and we didn't have the right tools. And what I do, and I assume you do, is say, well, I got to go learn those tools, and I was equipped to be able to learn those tools. So I think you're right. In a world in which you do not know what you'll be doing 5 years from now or 20 years from now, and a world in which so much knowledge is now at our fingertips, cramming your head full of facts and formulas is not the answer to managing the future. It's not even, it's self-evident that nothing. But it's hard for the system to catch up, in part because the system is built on evaluation, right, of giving grades. And as an educator teaching at the University of Chicago, look, I'm the worst offender in the world. I need to somehow give some kids A's and some kids B's. And the easiest way to do that is to teach them things that don't matter in ways that are somewhat hard and overcomplicated, so that I have a way to separate them out. And it's terrible, and I'm embarrassed about it, but it's what I do in my everyday life.
That shit almost sound criminal. It almost sound criminal that we have a professor, and so many of them know it, few might admit it. We have a professor sitting there with Google's chief technology officer and explaining to him, look, we're sitting there at the university level, cramming the heads of young adults and students with things that don't even matter. Don't even matter. And we have to sit there and craft and come up with fancy ways of presenting questions and projects and ideas to them about things that don't matter, to give the appearance as if it does and make it challenging, so you can give one person an A and another person a B, because it's all about evaluation. Not teaching people how to think. Not teaching people purpose. Not teaching or addressing the why, just the how. That's it, just the how. Not foundational principle conceptual knowledge. The reason why I stay on that so much with me, that resonates so much to me, not resonates in terms of a good thing about what he just said, which I gotta play again, because I know some of y'all hear slow. But listen to this professor at the University of Chicago explaining to the chief technology officer at Google. This is Stephen Levitt speaking to Ben Gomes or Ben Gomez, telling them, I feel bad. I'm a culprit. I'm embarrassed that we're sitting at the professor level, at the university level, where people have taken out loans, scholarships, getting grants, for us to sit there and act like you need to know this and do it in such a way that the student suffers from feeling some type of way about getting a grade when this shit don't even matter. Let's listen to what he says again. I think it's a great point he makes.
What the answers were, and we didn't have the right tools. And what I do, and I assume you do, is say, well, I got to go learn those tools, and I was equipped to be able to learn those tools. So I think you're right. In a world in which you do not know what you'll be doing 5 years from now or 20 years from now, building, and a world in which so much knowledge is now at our fingertips. Cramming your head full of facts and formulas is not the answer to managing the future. It's not even, it's self-evident that not the, but it's hard for the system to catch up, in part because the system is built on evaluation, right, of giving grades. And as an educator teaching at the University of Chicago, look, I'm the worst offender in the world. I need to somehow give some kids A's and some kids B's. And the easiest way to do that is to teach them things that don't matter in ways that are somewhat hard and overcomplicated, so that I have a way to separate them out. And it's terrible, and I'm embarrassed about it, but it's what I do in my everyday life.
Crazy. Now, here's a reality of young people not being able to find jobs coming out of college.
As an individual, don't have a 10-year plan. No one knows what the jobs are going to be in 10 years. Entry-level workers, new grads, they are dealing with what I call a sort of perfect storm. You have all the uncertainty in the macroeconomic environment, but you also have the beginnings of disruption from AI in entry-level work, going after entry-level tasks. And that's all leading to unemployment for young people and new grads being higher than national averages. Gen Z is feeling the most pessimistic about their futures than any other age group. We're going from static career paths that can be confining for a lot of people to dynamic career paths that are going to be exciting for a lot of people. It's sort of Charles Dickens' the best of times and the worst of times, because I really do think as AI plays out, at the other end of it is going to be more options for people as they build careers. And I think better work for humans at work. So all you need to do is have a today plan. And your today plan is, I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to push myself in some new way. I'm just going to keep working on who I am, what I'm good at, where I want to work, and I'm going to apply that to whatever job I find. But no matter where you work right now, you could be CEO of the biggest company in the world, or you could be an entry-level worker doing your first shift. All of our jobs are going to change. So all of us have to do the same thing. All of us need a today plan. At some level, the great equalizer is that we're all in it together, and then we can create a moment of great democratization of opportunity if we get leaders and systems to adapt.
Anish, thank you so much for joining me. I have been wanting to do this story for a long time, in part because I have a 25-year-old college grad who's got a master's and is looking for a job, and his girlfriend who has 2 masters and is looking for a job. Then I keep seeing these stories in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and Bloomberg and NPR about the crisis of jobs for college grads. And I look at my older kids and they never had that, right? They graduated from college 5-6 years ago, and it seemed to have been pretty straightforward for them. So are there some graduates that are suffering more than others? 5-10 years ago, we all wanted our kids to do computer science. Should we now be pushing them to do poetry?
Well, so let's take computer science. That was and remains sort of the poster child of the knowledge economy. It was the job that, especially I'm a child of immigrants, like immigrant communities, all communities were looking to get their kids into that path because it was security.
That's where you were going to make the big money.
Yes, and that was like the right math for what the knowledge economy represented. The knowledge economy is on the way out. We're living that reality. We're entering a new economy. And so you see the headlines of computer science degree holders who are graduating and finding it very difficult to get a job. Our own data, I did a New York Times op-ed last year with this point, 96% of the average computer software engineer's job is susceptible to being done by AI, either immediately or soon. Now, we argued in that op-ed, that doesn't mean that job goes away. It means what it is to be a computer scientist, to be a software engineer changes. We started to see employers saying, if you have that CS degree, do you have a philosophy minor? So you can help me think about the ethical implications of what I'm building. It used to be in the predictable path, I got this degree, now give me that job. And we all knew that like 1 + 1 = 2. That was great if you got the degree. It was not great, by the way, if you couldn't afford to get the degree, if you weren't in a like privileged community that gave you a pipeline to get to the degree, but it was all like known. Now, saying I got the degree doesn't really say much. You've got to say what that means you're going to be able to do. I think retail jobs start to have a lot of value in a way they didn't in the knowledge economy. If you could say you worked a job where you had to show resiliency, adaptability, managing hard well, those are things that employers are looking for. Where work is going, it's really going to be, none of us are our job title or where we sit in an org. We are these individuals with unique lived and learned experiences, unique energy that we bring, unique like resilience we bring. That's what we're going to get hired for and moved around with. And so articulating that is something folks can control. And honestly, I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. The main thing that I'm trying to sort of like shore up is a sense of self and self-worth and ability to handle hard well. I think those two buckets of skills are the most durable.
Back to the entry-level jobs. I saw that LinkedIn survey of what, some 3,000 executives saying that 63% of them think that AI will absorb entry-level tasks. So in a sense, is Gen Z just is going to suffer anyway, however much of a good story they tell about themselves, however much, wait staff work they do, however much they manage to connect those narrative dots. Maybe there just aren't going to be those entry-level jobs because corporations are going to give them to AI.
We don't know, but we do know the same percentage in that survey, like literally the same percentage that said AI is going to eventually take on tasks that are currently allocated to entry-level employees, say entry-level employees bring fresh ideas and new thinkings that is valuable to business growth. This same generation that's got this tough time landing a first job is AI native, is bringing a whole new sense of what consumers want and what businesses should do differently as they try to adapt to this new economy. The knowledge economy is on the way out that we've lived in for half a century.
Page of the Wall Street.
A new economy is emerging. When a new economy emerges, and this is when we went from the farm to the factory and we went from the factory to the office, disruption comes first. We're in that. Jobs change. We've got data 70% of the average job will have changed by 2030. So we're all going to be in new jobs, even if we don't change jobs. The third bit is that entirely new jobs get created. Influencer wasn't a job, 10 years ago. Data scientist wasn't a job 20 years ago. So we haven't even started to see that yet, aside from AI jobs. And then fourth phase, we're in a new economy. So if you're entry level, right now you're at the whim of companies doing this sort of math of how do we transition. Some companies are going to use old math for the new equation and just think it's about shrinking. Others realize we've got to just redo work, up level, entry level, bring these folks in who are going to help us build new business lines and think in different ways. The key to it all is you've got to just keep leaning on your own ability to develop skills and expertise.
Anish, what's the downside for individuals, young individuals leaving college, if we don't fix this entry-level job issue? What are they losing out on? Paint that picture for me.
There's a lot of research on the lingering impacts of a bad start. I mean, just like if you're unemployed for a period of time at the start, that just sets you further and further behind over time, because as you get further along, people want X number of years experience, more than X number of years experience. So it's really hard to start behind.
Do we have any data on how long behind and how much of a
There's different studies. I mean, it
there
could be months, it could be years. It depends on the cohort. So much of this is obviously socioeconomic. And so the children of wealthier, parents have an easier time catching up, have a more, immediate ability to go into entrepreneurship. So a lot of what we're talking about in terms of the vulnerable are two groups. One, people who are going to feel the job disruption from AI first and most fully. Those are people across their career in jobs that have a lot of tasks AI can do, and we can help them figure out how to use the tools to start to move what they do into more and more tasks around their unique capabilities. And people from lower socioeconomic, communities who stall out at the start. But even there, I think there's ways we can piece together a path forward because of new work. Like we talked about, retail, hospitality, healthcare, like a lot of these sectors that are hiring teach you a lot of these skills that are going to be durable across your career. It's not the knowledge economy. Tech isn't the only place you want to work. CS isn't the only degree and pathway you want to take.
Okay, Anish, give me 3 concrete things you would say to a 22-year-old graduating from college, struggling to find a job, part of the rejection generation that is sending off hundreds of applications and not even getting replies back again, or perhaps something you'd even say to their anxious parent.
Thing 1, be pro you. A lot of my thinking about AI and work is that I am radically pro-human, which can sound funny to folks, but nothing about work has been human-centric. The story of work has been the story of technology at work, not humans at work, certainly since the first industrial revolution. What we have been training people for, and this predates the knowledge economy, this is even when high school emerges to build managers for factories, has been to be task managers around technology, around machines. We now are going to flip that and put humans at the center of work. So you've got to be pro you. You've got to really understand what are your unique curiosities, what drives you. Don't feel like what gives you energy is something that isn't relevant because the old world of work didn't appreciate it. Really start to understand how you're going to get to a place of no one beats you at being you. The second thing I would say is lean on other people. I mean, we've got new data that shows two big things. People are feeling totally overwhelmed and people are turning to each other. We've got, I think, 82% increase in the number of people posting on LinkedIn about feeling overwhelmed. A lot feel like AI training is a second job. But what's interesting in all the memes you're seeing on TikTok of people asking GPT, like, what should I say to my wife? And the wife's like, what should I say to my husband? Is that actually isn't what's happening. People are turning to other people more than AI, more than search engines. And that's really comforting to me. Like the number one source for professionals at work is their network. So thing two, build your network. And then the third thing I'd say is just learn. Like first thing is empowering, be pro you. The third thing might feel a little crushing having just graduated. You didn't graduate. Like you're not done at all with learning. Like you're not going to not read again. You're not going to not have to sit and learn something new and fail again. That's all going to be forever now. And that's an amazing thing because like the best of life comes at the other end of hard and challenge and pushing yourself. But just start learning every day. Just start building that daily habit. I think if you do those three things, week over week, month over month, things will feel easier because you'll feel more in control. You'll be going off your own map.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't to say it's
That is something. That is absolutely true. Let me just throw this in there real quick so you guys have an idea about it. We're at a point now, and somebody made in the comments, so everybody's supposed to do AI, everybody's supposed to do programming, different things like that. No, not at all. What they're talking about, what's being said about who's going to be affected is certain parts of the economy. Now, I know this word probably wasn't used 5 years ago, but now there's a new term. You hear it somewhat. It's called the knowledge economy. And they're talking about knowledge workers. So if you work at a job somewhere, you probably have an idea who the knowledge workers are at your particular job. You just probably do. The knowledge workers are those IT guys that work in the computer area, the tech support. The knowledge workers are the accountants. Those are knowledge workers. These are people who perform tasks that require some immediate, sometimes a laborious effort to analyze, to find, to do different things to, okay? To scrub through, to kind of massage the data, present it, format it, other things like that. You know, somebody's working in the graphic arts area, the creative area, different things like that. So we kind of know that any job anybody has in any economy, we know that it requires knowledge. Nobody's being facetious and saying, oh, so this job, you saying I'm a bricklayer and it doesn't require knowledge? No, all jobs require knowledge. We're just speaking contextually. Contextually speaking, not literally, not semantically. When we're saying knowledge jobs or jobs that are considered not labor jobs, even though it does involve labor. So if you want to be difficult about the term, you can continue to be difficult. But if you want to get the point and grab the spirit of things, that's really what they're talking about. They're talking about, not for the most part, in a lot of ways, the ticket to getting a nice job, working in nice conditions or whatever in corporate America, air conditioning, being able to work remotely and being able to do it without getting calluses on your hands or making your knees dark from getting on your knees is what? IT, technology, accounting, procurement, different things like that, where you're not lifting boxes, loading trucks, and whatever, okay, the sorts. They're saying, and it is, that there's two things happening. On the one hand, there's a slowing down of the economy. Companies are pulling back from hiring, okay? That's a reality. And they're saying, hey, we're going to invest the money in AI. we can just stall you out right now. We don't have to hire a bunch of people because we can use AI, or at least begin to put the monies towards the investment in automation and artificial intelligence without filling all of these positions. So you have a shrinking job economy, okay, shrinking hiring, and then you have AI coming in the back end of all of these enterprise level systems, no matter what the domain, no matter what the profession, and being able to do what? Reduce costs and get more done in less time. Being more proficient, more efficient. So now the demand on the body, the human being, the actual person is less. Because guess what? Corporate America, they don't need you like that no more. We don't have to have somebody that needs benefits, bereavement days, sick days, personal days, sexual harassment lawsuits. My child I got an emergency, I got to leave right now. They don't need it. In fact, we can extend the shift. Where that company used to close after 8 to 5, they can have a second shift and run a virtual call center or contact center or whatever. They can have the prompts actually do work to actually go into parts of the system without having the credentials, using something called OAuth, using APIs and MPCs to actually do work, not just look at a read-only screen and give you an answer, but actually perform tasks for the client, for the customer, for the staff. So there's a lot going on from the front end where we're not going to hire as many, and the back end where the dollars are being put and the investment is being made. So there's just some things to be said about that. But anyway, I want to jump over here to this little clip, and this is Amazon. Now, the thing is, this clip that I'm about to play, this is a clip that was this year. And Amazon was over in Europe somewhere, and they're doing some type of, presentation, and it's called Delivering the Future. And basically what they were doing was showing to the investors the new type of, or the future type of Amazon fulfillment center, which I used to call warehouses, where, people go there and work and they stamp and they box and they put air, plastic bubbles in people's boxes and whatever, get it ready for delivery, fill up the trucks, and get it out on the road, and then it makes it to our steps. Fine. I used to just refer to them as Amazon warehouses, but now I find out the real name of them, no disrespect, is Amazon fulfillment centers. That sounds geeky in and of itself. Fine. This presentation, the line of question coming from the staff or the news reporters or the anchors at Bloomberg podcast is directly to the Amazon project manager presenting the future fulfillment centers. I apologize, for Amazon. That is going to involve robots, automation, reducing really the number of human beings that's needed to work at these places. But the thing that I'll point out is what he says, the robots that Amazon is building and bringing into all of these fulfillment centers, he states what they're trying to do, what they're after, what they're trying to eliminate. But I'll just be quiet and you guys check it out.
Into those Kiva robots.
Yeah, in addition to the world's first goods-to-person fulfillment strategy, which was just a really good idea, where we have more than 1 million robots that we manufacture actually in Massachusetts doing that job every day, you're going to see more of the unstructured fields, right? So you're going to see green robot that we call Proteus that can move big cargoes of packages to the right dock at the right time. You're going to see many more manipulation systems that we have in there, eliminating kind of the repetitive motions that we have. No one wants to lift a 50-pound box all day. Robin does that. Cardinal does that, moving it into some of these Proteus-bound carts that we have, you're going to see much more collaborative robotics, right? So that's where we build our robotic systems to enable people to augment what people are capable of. And we really believe in the philosophy of people and machines working together. How can we build the tool set that enables our employees to do their job not only more efficiently, but also with better safety in mind?
All right, so there's this robot arm called Blue Jay. You just talked about it. You know, you guys are using this AI agent called Illuna. And then you're also working with augmented reality glasses to be worn by drivers in delivery trucks in the field. There's like so much going on. Step back for a moment, because you guys have a lot of data. You look at what you're doing. I'm just curious, investors who are thinking about Amazon and what you are doing, how do they think about the long-term like ROI, return on investment, when it comes to the investment you guys make in robots? Is the goal about labor efficiency, throughput speed, or is it margin expansion, kind of tie across your fulfillment operations? What is it?
Yeah, well, definitely efficiency. We think about efficiencies and how can we gain efficiency through all the chain of our fulfillment processes, for sure. And you mentioned data, and data is the fuel for AI systems. Data has allowed us to bring, think of the body of being our robotics, but bring the mind to robotics, allowing it to be more adaptable, more fluid. You can almost think of this as the ability to pour our robotic systems into any size building, any scale of building, to amplify what our employees are already doing. We want to give them an amazing tool set. And we see that when we do that, we're more productive, right? When you do robotics right, when you do collaborative robotics where you need both people and machines doing what they do best, and they do different things better, that it allows you to be more productive. And when you're more productive, that allows you to invest more in people. We've upskilled more than 700,000 of our employees, which is a great stat. And also in our robotics, we've expanded from the Kiva days, we've expanded from just a movement solution to now movement and mobility and sortation and storage and perception systems, packing systems that have really changed the game for our customers. That's a big deal to us.
But Ty, you know, will you need less workers? And I got to bring it up. You know, the Times had a story out. They talked about interviews and a cache of internal strategy documents that they saw, that it reveals that your execs think that the company's on the cusp of its next big workplace shift. I'm reading from the Times, and replacing more than 500,000 jobs with robots. So, you know, we know things change. I'm not in a horse and buggy anymore. I don't make things piecemeal. I get it. I don't get tons of faxes, and I don't get tons of pieces of physical mail. Thank God. Things change. Having said that, is Amazon, do you guys believe that you're on the cusp of a workplace shift and that you won't need as many workers because the advancements in robotics?
Well, there's no doubt that things change. I mean, and we're actually really proud of that at Amazon, is that we avoid stasis at all costs. We change and we adapt, and the nature of tasks definitely changes. There's no doubt about that. We are laser focused on efficiencies inside of our buildings. But when it comes to that article was speculating 10 years out. Right, that's a 10-year speculation, and it's hard to say what's going to happen in the next 10 years. But I can tell you what happened in the last 10 years. The last 10 years, which is when we seriously invested in robotics, that we created hundreds of thousands of new jobs and new job types. And there's been no employer in the United States that has employed more people than Amazon. In 10 years. I mean, that's the power of efficiencies and building your robots in a way that's applied and real, that actually augments the human potential.
All right, my brother say I'm like a dog with a bone. So wait, so does that mean 10 years?
And it could pick more than 75% of the inventory that we actually sell in our sortable network, which is a really big deal. I'm really proud of that. And I'll also say there's just something interesting about Blue Jay as well, as compared to our other bird manipulation systems, Cardinal, Sparrow, and Robin. It took us about 3 years to kind of design, deploy, and get out to our frontline employees. We have actually done Blue Jay with the power of AI in just over a year. So it's really accelerated the pace of innovation.
I think when a lot of people think about
manipulation robot that we call Blue Jay, and what Blue Jay have here, and we made a couple of big announcements in robotics today.
Can you tell us about them?
Yeah, but The first is in our manipulation robot that we call Blue Jay. And what Blue Jay, the way that you can think of that is you can take 3 assembly lines and put it in the same footprint of 1. What it does is help eliminate the menial, the mundane, and the repetitive. And it could pick.
That's what I was looking for right there. I was looking for him to say that right there. That's what I was looking for. That's why I kept scrubbing it back a little bit more. I'll let that play again, this little part where he says that the aim of bringing in the robots, what is it that they're trying to identify? What is it when Amazon is deciding, and bringing in the AI, the robots, the algorithms, the different things that automate the systems? What is their target? What is the thesis? What do they aim to eliminate? So let's listen to those words again he used.
The same footprint of 1. What it does is help eliminate the menial, the mundane, and the repetitive.
There it is right there. It helps to eliminate the menial, M-E-N-I-A-L, the mundane, opposite of esoteric, just ordinary, and the repetitive. That's it. And that's him saying it. All these companies have some version of eliminating the menial, the mundane, and the repetitive. Well, who are they talking about? They're talking about human beings. That's who they're talking about. Is something wrong with it? Of course not. If I'm a stockholder, if I'm an investor, if I'm an owner, if I'm a franchise, no. If it's about making more money with less, no. But will it eliminate people? Of course it will. This idea that we're keeping everybody, or we kept everybody and we're going to hire more, that's the glass half full. But let's look at the glass full. Forget the glass half empty. Let's look at it full. If you bring in the robots, and now you can have an assembly line where you done configured it where 3 aisles or 3 functions of an aisle could be in one area, one space, and you have the robots, the algorithms, AI working it. Cool. And you say, well, it was 50 people working at that Amazon fulfillment center, and we kept all 50 of them. Yeah, that sounds great, because the people listening, you didn't get rid of anybody. But if you opened up an additional shift and you're actually doing more work, each shift with the same 50 people, how many people you didn't hire? That's the real question. See, it's a semantic shift or play with words. When you say, hey, it was 50 people working at this fulfillment center, we upgraded with new robots, we opened up additional shifts, we have a lot more going on, we're busier than we ever were, and we kept all 50 people. That's a little misleading, because if it wasn't for the AI and it wasn't for the robots, and you grew like that, you may have hired 150 more people. This is how the hiring isn't done. This is why the shrinkage, those opportunities that were there, they're not going to be there as much. They might be there this year. They might even be there next year. They're just not going to be a staple or an opportunity for everybody coming home for Christmas or semester break and different things like that to just work at an Amazon fulfillment center. They won't need you. Nothing's wrong with it from the business side. In fact, if you look at your 401ks and you look at your 403bs and you look at any type of investment package or any type of benefit packages you might have with your company, you might feel good about that. It grew all year. In the year 2025, the average 401k was anywhere from 12 to 15% or whatever. It's doing great. But you also, that same person that may be experiencing not being able to buy or shop or get groceries or gas and other things when you go to spend your money that you earn from working at one of the companies. Because there's a different economy. There's the market where you're making money, and your benefit package is growing, your investments are growing, there's the market, the stock market, and then there's this other thing called the economy where you feel it. The pain points are there. And it seems confusing. I feel great about my benefit package increasing on the right trajectory, but damn, how much is an egg again? How much is that gas? How much is a drink? Whatever. It's the same thing here. It sounds good. We're going to keep all 75 people. And we added another shift. I think that's amazing. No, the reality of it is there's an additional 125 people you're not going to hire because of the robots. Just say what it is. There's an additional shift that you're going to split the people up to run because you don't need that many hands. That's just the reality of it. Again, what is the aim? To eliminate the menial, the mundane, and repetitive tasks. And that's not only with Amazon, it's across any industry, any domain, any profession. That is the target. That is the thesis statement. That is the mantra of bringing in AI, whether it's from the front door or the back door, however it's integrated into the systems, being served up to the workers or the staff, and creating positions or ousting positions that when people leave it, it will be redefined or not filled. These are just realities. That's all. They're just realities. And my man, Dario Amodei, who's the CEO of Anthropic's Claude, which is actually a LLM that really does coding assistance really well. Listen to what he says about jobs. And he's the CEO of one of the top large language model companies out here that does the coding, the assistant coding and other things. Anthropic's Claude. This is Dario Amodei, or Amodei.
A well-known and respected tech CEO, Dario Amodei, who heads a cutting-edge AI company called Anthropic, is raising alarms tonight about AI's potential impact on employment that could soon be felt. While he says AI can lead to incredible advancements like medical breakthroughs and boost the economy, he believes it could also lead to half of entry-level white-collar jobs disappearing and 10 to 20% unemployment in the next 1 to 5 years. It's something that's been talked about within tech circles for a while, but rarely so starkly and so publicly. I spoke to him just before air about that and other implications he thinks AI may have on society. Dario, you've said that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20%. How soon might that happen?
Well, let's, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. But just to back up a little bit, you know, I've been building AI for over a decade. And I think maybe the most salient feature of the technology and what is driving all of this is how fast the technology is getting better. A couple of years ago, you could say that AI models were maybe as good as a smart high school student. I would say that now they're as good as a smart college student and sort of reaching past that. I really worry, particularly at the entry level, that the AI models are you know, very much at the center of what an entry level human worker would do. And so it's hard to estimate, you know, exactly what the impact would be. And you know, there's always this question of adaptation. And you know, these technology changes have happened before, but I think what is striking to me about this AI boom is that it's bigger and it's broader and it's moving faster than anything has before. And so compared to previous technology changes, I'm a little bit more worried about the labor impact simply because it's happening so fast that yes, people will adapt, but they may not adapt fast enough. And so there may be an adjustment period.
You are running an incredibly important company in AI, and you know this better than anybody, or as well as you know, all the names we know, people, Sam Altman and others who are working, Elon Musk in AI. Why are you raising the alarm? Because it's not necessarily, I would think, in your best interest, because a lot of the messages we hear from, at least publicly, from, you know, some AI CEOs and stuff is a little bit more calming, like, you know, these agents are going to be great in your life, and yes, there may be problems, but, you know, writ large, this is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason I'm raising the alarm is that I think others haven't as much, and I think someone needs to say it. To be clear, and I recognize it's always a difficult balance, right? I'm aware of my position that I'm building this technology while also expressing concerns about it, and the reason I'm doing both of those things is one, I think the benefits are massive, and we need to find a way to achieve the benefits and mitigate or prevent the harms. And the second thing I would say is, look, there are, as you mentioned, 6 or 7 companies in the U.S. building this technology, right? If we stop doing it tomorrow, the rest would continue. If all of us somehow stopped doing it tomorrow, then China would just beat us. And I don't think China winning in this technology is, I don't think that helps anyone or makes the situation any better.
I do want to read something that Sam Altman, your former boss at OpenAI, said in September. He was saying that AI can cause significant, in his words, significant change in labor markets, good and bad. He went on to say that most jobs will change more slowly than most people think. And then he said this, and I want to just read it word for word. He said, many of the jobs we do today would have looked like trifling wastes of time to people a few hundred years ago. But nobody is looking back at the past wishing they were a lamplighter. If a lamplighter could see the world today, he would think the prosperity all around him was unimaginable. And if we could fast forward 100 years from today, the prosperity all around us would feel just as unimaginable. For younger people, I should say lamplighters was actually a job. People went around lighting lamps on the streets. I think a lot of people may not even know what a lamplighter is. But do you think Sam Altman is wrong?
Yeah, so I think there are some things I agree with about that, and then there are some things that I think are too optimistic. So I definitely agree that AI, if we succeed at it, can grow the pie greatly, right? I wouldn't be surprised if economic growth is much higher than it is today as a macroscopic phenomenon, right? That AI allows society as a whole to be more productive. So
let me just say, because you've previously in the past said you've described a future where cancer is cured, the economy grows at 10% a year, the budget is balanced, and 20% of people don't have jobs.
That's exactly what I was getting to, right? Where I agree with all the positive potential. I think that isn't wrong. But I think the quote you just flashed is maybe too optimistic, maybe too sanguine about the ability for people to adapt. People have adapted to past technological changes, but I'll say again, everyone I've talked to has said this technological change looks different. It looks faster. It looks harder to adapt to. It's broader. The pace of progress keeps catching people off guard. And so I don't know exactly how fast, the job concerns are going to come. I don't know how fast people are going to adapt. It's possible it'll all be okay. But I think that's too sanguine an approach. I think we do need to be raising the alarm. I think we do need to be concerned about it. I think policymakers do need to worry about it. If they do worry and they do act, then maybe we can prevent it. But we're not going to prevent it just by saying everything's going to be okay.
Do we as a society even understand the potential inequalities that this may amplify? And also the impact just on I have little kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. What do they grow up aspiring to if machines can do pretty much everything better? What does it do to initiative or drive or striving? And I don't know the answer to that, yes, but it concerns me.
Let's take those questions one by one. Those do concern me, but I do have thoughts on them. In terms of inequality, I'm worried about this. There's an inherent social contract in democracy where ultimately, the ordinary person has a certain amount of leverage because they're contributing to the economy. If that leverage goes away, then it's hard to make democracy. It's harder to make democracies work, and it's harder to prevent concentration of power. And so, we need to make sure that the ordinary person maintains economic leverage and has a way to make a living, or our society, our social contract won't work. And that's why I think it's important.
During testing, your company's latest chatbot, Claude 4, was capable of what was described as extreme black.
In 2024.
I'm back. I apologize. That was Dario Amodei, and he is the founder, him and his sister, of Anthropic's Claude. Claude. Now, whether it be Dario Amodei, whether it be Elon Musk, as well as some others, they all had something to do with or work directly with Sam Altman on the OpenAI project. OpenAI, as we know it, is ChatGPT. ChatGPT made AI normal to the average Joe. It just did. Did AI exist before ChatGPT was released in late 2023? Absolutely, it existed. Companies like JP Morgan, companies like Oracle, all types of companies were using AI in the background somewhere. They were. If you look at Uber, some of your Lyft Drive, all of those systems, they had AI. But AI as we knew it was this abstract thing. It was this intangible thing. It was this service or this product that for the most part, none of us felt like we were going to understand it. And we definitely didn't feel like we would be engaging with AI at a level of awareness, at a level of knowledge, and even to the point of challenging it now through the prompts, the prompting engineering, through the asking of the questions, the to and fro. So when you're sitting there with ChatGPT, whether it be the earlier versions or ChatGPT 5, whether it be in thinking mode or some other mode, however you have it for you, and you're going back and forth, it's like you're holding the conversation to a somewhat, almost human being, like almost sentient, not quite, but on the knowledge level, the information and different things like that. While it may come back with some erroneous information, and it does hallucinate, 8 out of 10 times, though, you're not that disappointed with the response. That's that to and fro, prompting it, knowing what to ask, knowing how to ask, trying to get it to do what you do. But then they took it a little further, and they say, hey, you can create your own GPTs inside of your ChatGPT profile. Meaning, if you go into your settings and personalization, or go over there on the left side of the drop down or the column or whatever they call it over there, the panel, you can create what's called the GPT and assign it a role. You can say, hey, I need to create you as a GPT. You're going to be an English teacher. You have 7 years experience teaching an English class at the 3rd grade level in the United States. So you're basically conjuring up, or you're basically giving it a resume or a portfolio with experience, credentials, different things like that. And you're creating sort of a persona for the GPT to generate. And then that's where you would have your conversations in there, your prompts in there, because it would have that focused. You can also create agents now. The difference between just a prompt, I say this, I ask this, it asks it back, that to and fro, like sort of that little virtual conversation, it doesn't do work. Yeah, it goes and fetch and it comes back. And then you have to go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But if you want it to do work, then you create agents, agentic AI, that can go out and perform tasks, that can access email systems and applications, that can connect through APIs and MPCs and different things like that, that can create multiple sessions and do work and come back to you and say, hey, this is the stuff you're looking for. We're just somewhere else with it, and it's happening really fast. It's way beyond just the ChatGPT as we typically use it. But OpenAI's ChatGPT, Sam Altman, the release of it in late 2023 or early 2022, whenever it was, it brought it into our households. It delivered it onto all of our devices. The ease of use, the threshold of entry to actually start engaging it was amazingly simple. And we, me and others, we were around to show our neighbors, our family, our friends. It's been great. But where are we going now? What is the next phase? What about education? What about school? What about the people at Yale, at Harvard? What about the teachers? Yeah. What about the middle class careers that the 40-year-olds have, the 50-year-olds have, the 60-year-olds have? The people who have already decided what they're going to be doing for a living, but they're a knowledge worker. They're part of the knowledge economy. What happens there?
In 2024, the 4 largest tech companies in the United States leading advances in AI earned nearly $268 billion.
Both Amazon and Microsoft exceeding analyst estimates on both the top line and the bottom line.
But these profits have come at the cost of the dismissal of hundreds of thousands of workers who generally belong to the so-called middle class.
Despite reporting better than expected quarterly results, tech giant Microsoft announced it will be laying off roughly 6,000 employees.
Although advances in artificial intelligence promise gains in productivity, efficiency, and cost reduction, people who lose their jobs also lose the opportunity to move up the socioeconomic ladder.
Big tech companies like Meta, Google, and Amazon have been laying off a staggering amount of workers, tens of thousands of people.
The problem is that with the elimination of these jobs, the gap between the rich and the poor is growing increasingly wider.
The digital revolution creates enormous wealth for those with the skills and preparation to take advantage, but it eliminates what economists call middle skill jobs.
Whereas in the past, workers had bargaining power due to their essential role in production, today that power is diminished in the face of machines that operate without salaries, demands, or interruptions. So, how artificial intelligence is replacing middle-class careers? The rise of artificial intelligence has ushered in a new technological era that promises significant productivity gains, cost reductions, and transformative efficiencies across all sectors. However, behind these promises lies a growing economic concern. AI is accelerating a structural shift in the U.S. labor market that threatens the stability and very existence of the middle class. Historically, the middle class has been the backbone of the U.S. economy, sustained by a broad base of white-collar jobs in sectors such as finance, education, and law. The automation of traditional tasks performed by mid-skilled professionals is severely affecting the American middle class.
Computer software and industrial machines now fill roles from clerical tasks to routine manufacturing that once produced middle-class incomes for workers without college degrees.
At the same time, wealth is increasingly concentrated in a small elite that owns AI companies. Although much of the public attention has focused on how automation threatens blue-collar manufacturing jobs, a quieter revolution is unfolding in white-collar sectors. In fields that were traditionally considered immune to automation, such as law, journalism, and finance, AI is already displacing workers. For example, AI tools are being used by law firms to draft legal documents, by newsrooms to generate content, and by corporations to replace customer service agents. A 2024 McKinsey report estimated that between 15 and 30% of working hours in white-collar jobs could be automated by 2030. But what is most concerning is the impact on careers that have traditionally defined the American middle class.
Artificial intelligence is advancing at breakneck speed, and the CEO of an AI firm just warned businesses and politicians that they shouldn't sugarcoat the impact that this is going to have on the workforce.
Being a teacher, accountant, copywriter, or financial analyst used to be seen as a stable path to a life of decent income, benefits, and social mobility. Today, many of those occupations are under threat from AI systems that perform tasks faster, at lower cost, and often with fewer errors. Accounting, for instance, is being transformed by platforms that use AI to process and audit financial data, reducing the need for human accounting staff. In journalism, media companies like the Associated Press have adopted automatic article generation for financial and sports coverage. In education, platforms like Khan Academy and AI-powered tutoring services are beginning to replace part of the teacher's role, especially in individualized tutoring. Even in programming, tools like GitHub Copilot are drastically reducing the need for junior developers by automatically generating blocks of code. Moreover, these tools are replacing traditional occupations at an unprecedented speed. What was once a clearly defined career path, progressing from roles like accounting assistant to senior accountant or from junior reporter to editor, is now disappearing. AI not only automates specific tasks, but also redraws the full scope of certain jobs.
Let's talk about how AI is transforming the legal industry. Many of these tools are so powerful that big law firms are actually restructuring their workflows just to integrate them.
In the legal industry, assistants and paralegals are being replaced by platforms that not only draft contracts, but also perform case law analysis. In finance, analysts are being replaced by algorithms capable of scanning and evaluating market trends in real time. In design, new generative tools allow anyone to create professional quality images without prior training, drastically reducing demand for skilled graphic designers. This replacement of entire job functions is causing traditional middle-class careers to lose their structural value. It is no longer about learning a discipline and practicing it for decades, but about constantly adapting to a market in which technical knowledge can become obsolete within months. As a result, the stability offered by these professions, predictable income, health insurance, the ability to buy a house and educate one's children, is crumbling.
Artificial intelligence is set to reshape our workplaces.
What does this mean for my job? Am I going to have a job? Will my children have jobs?
Companies are itching to incorporate AI into their systems. But are we really ready for it?
These transformations not only eliminate existing jobs, but
I'll jump in right here and I'll say this to you guys, okay? And it's a little selfish, but I'm going to say it. If you currently work somewhere now as a knowledge worker, yes, large tech companies, they're laying off a massive number of engineers and senior programmers, and they're not hiring maybe as many junior programmers. A lot of companies are, they're scaling back, and they're investing the money in AI. They're going for the long shot. Here's the thing. It's not all done right now. Like all of the challenges that I'm talking about and what people will be facing, what the young adults will be facing, what they're going through now, the waste of time that they're using on the information being taught to them at the university level, in grade school, in middle school, and different things like that. Yeah, all of that is true. But in terms of today, tomorrow, this week, this year, next year, maybe within the next 2 to 3 years, okay? And I hope I'm not just being too optimistic, but definitely for the year 2026, and for the year 2027. 2 years, 24 months. You can reposition yourself. You can reshape yourself. You can upskill, reskill. You can become a beast. You know, let's say you're working somewhere and whatever you was doing there, you was the spreadsheet guy, okay? You was the guy or the woman, maybe in the accounting department. Y'all had an accounting system y'all used. But you did some things on the side with the spreadsheet, and you used it kind of as a middleware to make sense of some number or some use case or business flow that y'all needed, that maybe the accounting software that you guys were using either didn't spit out, communicate, allow you to report properly, or massage the data in such a way that you couldn't get it ready for the next phase, whether it was to send it over to procurement, to send it over to whatever accountants do. I don't know what they do, okay? But your skill set that you leveraged against that was in Excel because you're strong in Excel. Let's say you got 10 years in, 7 years in. Okay, that's cool. I would strongly suggest, not only want to investigate and find out what AI tools are available inside of the current accounting packages that you use, and maybe ask your boss or your manager or your company to receive training for that AI package, whether they currently use it or not. But you also want to become very, very fluent in Copilot for Excel. Yes, Copilot, C-O-Pilot. Microsoft's AI assistant for their suite of applications is called Copilot. So Excel has a Copilot. Microsoft Word, I think, has a Copilot. PowerPoint has a Copilot. Each one of Microsoft's applications, they have a Copilot. The person that has 7 or 10 years experience with Excel, that's been great at the company because they invested in the company in terms of knowledge. they can easily be replaced by somebody with 2 or 3 years of experience in Excel, strong at Copilot, has learned Copilot, has embraced the use of Copilot, can speak the terms, can demonstrate use cases with Copilot. They will eliminate that 7 to 10-year-old experience with Excel. Easy. Why? Because Copilot is the AI assistant for Excel. The person, as laborious as it was, that may have went to school and received some training and different things like that, and they have 7 to 10 years worth of experience in Excel, yeah, they're good, they're strong and all that. But where we are going, where we need to be, and who we need to take with us is not the person with 10 years experience in Excel only, not the person with 7 years experience in Excel only. We could take a person with 2 or 3 years experience in Excel, someone that has adopted the use and understands the value, realizes it, and can demonstrate to us how valuable Copilot is, and that will make up for that 7 to 10 years experience we're about to lose. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is wherever you work, whatever you're doing, whether it's for clients or corporate America, whatever, if you are demonstrating or you're showing a rebellious type of energy, a pushback of energy against AI, against the tools, against what's obviously there, especially in the case of something like a Microsoft where it's Copilot there. Your bosses, your managers, your directors, if they're forward-thinking people, if they already understand the game plan moving forward in terms of being more proficient, more efficient, putting the dollars into automation, AI, what have you, they're not going to like that. That's not going to sit well with them. They're going to be more enthused and more apt and more welcoming and embracing to somebody new or somebody else that know how to use Excel with only 2 or 3 years experience, but can represent, articulate, and demonstrate the value of Copilot. Because all that other trickery you know over the 7 to 10 years, they're going to feel like this person can catch up with all that because of Copilot. That's the reality of it. So if you one of those people that are walking around in your company, forget AI. I've been doing this for 12 years. You know, talking that last slave shit talk. They're not going to say nothing to you. They're just not going to keep you there because you sound crazy. That's all. You sound crazy. You got to get down or lay down on this thing. If you know Adobe, you work in the marketing department, you do content creation, you want to become familiar with Firefly. Why? Firefly is the AI for the Adobe product, such as Premiere for video and Photoshop and what's the other one? Lightroom and different things like that. You want to put yourself in a position, because I'm talking about the people who have positions now. You can almost solidify or fortify or keep yourself there if you turn on the light, if you don't blink, and you start embracing, learning the artificial intelligence tools that are related to what you currently do. And you can normally find them in the apps that you currently use. That's going to signal to your direct report. That's going to signal to who's making decisions that when we need to cut down or cut back as a result of our investment and money's going into AI for the different things that we do instead of new hires, we want to keep this person. Why? They already into it. They already learning it. They're asking for training. They want us to invest in them for them to get to learn that, because they do the content creation, because they do the desktop publications, because they do so and so and such. But again, if you one of them people, it's, you just stuck in your ways and you got off the Pinta Maria for the pilgrims, whatever ship Plymouth Rock didn't land on us or land on whatever. Yeah, the last in all the slave ships, that thinking. You playing yourself. You are playing yourself. I'm talking about the people with jobs now. You can kind of lock your shit down a little bit. All you got to do is wake up, get with it, reskill, upskill, ask for training, put yourself in it. You probably wind up saying, damn, this shit is powerful. It does assist me. There is a level of augmentation, augmenting, improving, making better what I do. I am empowered by this. This is a tool. It is a resource. Damn. You might surprise yourself. Because if not, you're going to play yourself. That's all I'm saying. You're going to play yourself. But let me shut up. Let's talk about 20 PhDs. The work of 20 PhDs. Damn.
We decided to change everything, change culture, change design, change intellectual structure, use technology, move in new directions, and then we began measuring learning outcomes.
For all the talk about changes in higher ed, including just this week, when the University of Virginia became the first public college to agree to Trump administration oversight, the biggest cause for change, AI, doesn't come up all that often in the political debate. For nearly a quarter century, Michael Crow has led the university that is, by some measures, the largest in the United States. Few people have thought as much about American higher education while also having the ability to influence it on such a large scale. But when we first talked with him a little over a year ago, we didn't cover artificial intelligence. A lot has changed since then.
AI will leave a lot of white-collar people behind.
Another uncomfortable truth linked to AI.
AI.
It's not a bubble.
Obviously the most disruptive technology in the history of mankind.
Egalitarian access to knowledge is at the highest level in the history of our species. What we have is a walking, talking reference library on any subject, and we never had anything like that in our society before.
We wanted to know how artificial intelligence is changing the American college experience, what it means for the teachers and students who have now made it a regular part of their lives. But we also asked Crow about the outcomes for recent graduates and how his school is preparing students for an economy that is moving very fast.
What does that do to teaching? I mean, back in the olden days, we wrote essays, we wrote blue books back when I was there. How do you do things like essays and evaluations?
Well, I think what has to happen, and we've experienced this at ASU with our 6,000 faculty members, several thousand of which are already AI trained, is you have to up the game. Perhaps we were learning too slowly, too incrementally, too much in a regimented or industrial way. With the AI tools that are available now, you can up the game, enhance the question complexity, enhance the answer complexity, expect more of the students. We had somebody give their test out of the business school to an AI system and get everything right instantly. Well, then the test is too easy. The test is too simple. So it's basically a way, in our view, to accelerate learning, to broaden learning, and to speed learning. So you have to look at it as a new way to basically make the game more intensive. The model's always changing. So Plato, was against the written word. He thought everything should be thought through verbally and communicated verbally. There were unbelievable forces against the development of the printed book. And so the internet and its development, the web and its development all had people that were against it. And so AI changes the model in the sense that it speeds it up and intensifies it. It personalizes the learner's experience, but it doesn't teach those core things. There's no values being taught. There's no values being experienced. There's no lived experiences being built. So what we really have here now is we just have this massive hyperspeed calculator capable of going to all of the digitized information, you asking a question about that information and getting the most probable answer. It's all about the questions that you're asking. It's not about the answers, it's about the questions, and that's what people need to really figure out.
Does it change the notion of cheating?
I'll bet humans have cheated for quite a while. It does change the nature of what is your work. Now, if you're answering a complex question and you're using a reference library and an AI system to answer that question, that seems legitimate. If you're using it to produce your analytical response that's supposed to be demonstrative of your ability, well, then you're cheating. Now, you have to then build a system which recognizes the ability to gain access to these tools. Now, sometimes it's just going to be you in there by yourself taking the test, because they've got to know that you know how to ask the question, you know how to derive the answer, that your brain works in a certain way. Beyond that, the AI systems are going to enhance learning in every possible way, and the idea of cheating will change.
At this point, are there some things that you can learn that AI cannot teach you?
Absolutely. I mean, an AI system can't teach you to be innovative. It can't teach you to be creative. It cannot teach you grit. It cannot teach you the discovery process. It cannot teach you, I mean, it's a machine. It's an advanced hyper-speed calculator. It can do things that you can't do. It can think around corners that you can't see. But of course, so can a dog. And so it's a powerful analytical tool to enhance our mental capabilities, not to replace them.
In order to ensure that AI is a springboard rather than a crutch, Crow says students and teachers will have to raise the bar. And one place he's already seen signs of AI's ability to supercharge progress is in the school's research programs.
It's almost unbelievable. We have probably 50 research groups that are using advanced AI to solve unsolvable problems, to figure out how to process materials or manage the Mississippi River in a different way in terms of the flow of the water and the flow of the dirt and other things that go down the river. We've got people doing advanced chemistry now. We're using AI systems to think beyond the way that we normally think, to create more revolutionary opportunity.
So I'm going to jump in real quick and I'm going to let it go because he's making a really good point there. But here's the thing. This idea of what I could call a cognitive offload, okay? And I keep saying that because I want my little term to become popular one day before it's all over, all right? So this cognitive offload, this idea that I'm sitting in a vacuum, I don't know anything, I don't have any original ideas, I don't even have a legitimate or viable strategy to even develop a method of getting things done. And so what I do is I just put something into the LLM, whether it be ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, or Anthropic's Claude. And then whatever it comes back with, that's the gospel for me. That's the true bill. That's the word. That's golden. Why? Because I don't know anything about the domain anyway. I really don't understand this level of that particular questioning about this particular profession or problem solving or solution or challenge. That's a cognitive offload. That's me in a vacuum with nothing trying to generate something. What's not a cognitive offload, and I think is a proper use of AI, the LLMs and the likes, is when I'm sitting there and I understand a problem. I realize that we're in search of a solution. They may have been things that I've tried or others have. I've done some research and now I'm seeking it out or I'm using it to assist me with research. That is me using it as a legitimate tool, a resource. That is a form of augmentation, not a cognitive offload. So some people, the way that they explain it or they express the idea of the misuse or the cheating or different things like that is they say, well, if you got to use it and you didn't know, you're cheating and that's misuse. No, not at all. Not at all. If you know that there's a screw that needs to go into the wall to hang your painting, you better get a screwdriver unless your fingers is made like that. Your strength is made like that. Your calluses is made like that. Then don't get a screwdriver. Other than that, go ahead and get your tool. But I don't think that you would be sitting there not knowing what part of the wall or which room to hang a painting, to put a screw, and just in the blind, without having any ideas, start screwing holes in your wall with screws, because you will see the improper or misuse of that particular approach. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there in terms of some legitimacy or not, or some consideration and more when it comes to that. But let me be quiet as this guy explains how far advanced the research is being done in the universities at the graduate and postgraduate levels.
There was a study recently done by some of our faculty at the speed with which you could complete the work equivalent to a dissertation in genetics, 14 days. What that means then is that the PhD that normally takes 4 or 5 years to set up the experiments, do the work, be evaluated, maybe the PhD student of the future will do the equivalent of 20 PhDs. That will speed up the cures for cancer. That will speed up the analytical tools that will help restore sight in human beings. That will speed up the techniques that use electromagnetic current to affect people with Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases, all of which are computationally limited.
Certainly the world has changed enormously since I came out of college a long time ago now. But my sense is the rate of change has really increased, maybe even geometrically, how fast it's changing. How do you prepare graduates today for a world 20, 30, 40 years down the road that I can't even imagine?
So there's no way to prepare someone for something you don't know what it will be, except one thing. What we call, we're attempting to take all the people that are coming to our university, 120,000 degree-seeking students, 700,000 other learners who are just taking courses with us digitally and otherwise. Can we help create you to be a master learner? Can we help you to be a person capable of learning anything, adjusting to anything, adapting to anything? It's really that, because we don't know what all of the adaptations that will be required are. We do know that you should be grounded in American history and economics and the role of democracy and certain subjects in math and science and so forth and so on. And then after that, we find a learning path for you to take where you learn to learn. We don't care what your major is. I met a kid the other day who was majoring in opera and physics. Great, fine, fantastic. That's how that kid learns. And so that's what we're after. How do you create universal learners capable of learning anything? That's the pathway.
We hear at 40,000 feet about a shifting employment situation for recent college graduates because of AI. Are you seeing any of that in the real world?
We're not seeing that in our graduates. Now, the problem with people talking about all college graduates, there's more than 20 million people in college. A couple million go to what you think of as sleepaway colleges. They go to places where you're living on campus. The other 18 million go to college in some other way, community college, online, some kind of other course, and so forth. So we're not seeing any change. We're seeing the same level of anxiety. We're seeing the same level of the process. More than 95% of our students that graduate as undergraduates are employed or in graduate school within the first year, almost all within the second year. So we're still, seeing good ROIs. But what we are seeing is students, who are quite savvy, adjusting their trends. So we're seeing a slightly downward trend in computer science and a slightly upward trend in double majoring and triple majoring. More people moving into analytics and supply chain and all kinds of other things. And so the market for learning is also adjusting. We measure our success based on who we include.
Crow hopes the size and scope of ASU will help with that adjustment, allowing students to react quickly and build new skills for the changing world.
So what is it that you can do? What is it that you as a young student, what is the message for young students? What is the message for new college graduates? What is the message for those individuals that are currently in school and they're about to graduate? They're about to make choices in terms of what college they're going to go to, in terms of how much money they're going to commit to a debt, to get in debt that they're going to have to pay back, in terms of what the career path is going to be, or what type of education they will seek out to lead them in that path of career. What are some of the strategies now? Are the guidance counselors or the teachers or the systems going to tell the young kids, hey, get your gen eds out the way first, focus on that, and then once you get that figured out, then pick a core curriculum or switch to that because things are changing? Is that the message? Or are they going to say, hey, you know what? Focus on some blue collar stuff. Get away from the white collar stuff. Whatever. We're in the pendulum swing. There's another industrial era here, and it's called artificial intelligence, and things are just swaying around. So how does that look? How does that sound? How is that going to be met? What is going to be the conflict? What is going to be the conundrum? What is going to be the consternation there for banks and lending companies trying to get the commitment from students for an area that it's going to be clear to them even more now than before. You're not even going to be able to potentially be able to cash in on it. Whereas though before it was just elusive, it got away from everybody. But now it's like right in your face, like that opportunity ain't there. And here's the projection right here. So what does that look like? What are school systems going to do? What do people currently have jobs? What are they going to do? What I say in part and parcel to a lot of that is what you can do as an individual, as a student, is learn more about artificial intelligence, the tools that are available for the industry that you're seeking out. I wouldn't just say change. Whatever industry that you're going after, become more aware, more educated, more informed about artificial intelligence. The tools, the applications that are available that would augment, increase, or enhance some capabilities and features and functions in the field that you pursue, because it'll be relevant then. Don't just learn to be learning. That's the most difficult thing. I'm just learning to be learning. Nah, I don't even know how you're going to sustain that. But if you know you want to go into nursing, well, just spend a little additional time finding out what's the AI, what's the new tools, what's being pushed up behind the devices we're going to get exposure or get some training on. If you're going into law, the same thing. If you're going into health, the same thing. If you're going into IT or information technology, the same thing. That's something you can do. Find out what those AI engines are, those LLMs, those things that will enhance what you're doing, improve or assist maybe you're learning about it. If you're currently working somewhere, look for some training, ask for some training, do some research on what AI tools, what artificial intelligence engines are already created by this company to complement or supplement or enrich my usage of it, my creative ideas, my delivery, my whatever it is that you're doing. Those are things that you can do. You can put your hands on it. No, you're not in the room when they move the decimal point and wipe out everybody in your department. There's nothing you can do about that. But can you show interest in what you currently do for a living if you're a knowledge worker that will speak to you're on board, you get it, you see the value? And let me demonstrate something for you. I'm interested, I'm willing, get me some training. Those steps, being mindful, you can do that. You might say, well, that might not be enough. Then it's never enough if it's beyond what you can do, no matter what we're talking about. Anyway, guys, I want to say thank you for stopping through. It's your boy, Talk Williams, host and creator of What? Hip Hop 50th. There will be more content like this. I hope you stop through again and just, weigh in. And nobody's right, nobody's wrong. We just have opinions. I want to say good night, good evening, good morning, everybody.